Today I'm going to talk to you about one of my books. I'm going to talk to you about my latest book, Sonny Days, Struggles, Scenery, and Solace with the World's Strangest Shelter Dog. This is a book that was published on July 29th, 2020. So it's a fairly new book, and seeing a lot of positive results from the release of that book. And so I just kind of wanted to reflect a little bit for this podcast about that book and tell you just kind of how it came about, how I decided to write a book about a dog and how you go about writing a book about a dog, and just that writing process, people I spoke with, and just some of the things from the book, so that you can get a little, peel back the curtain a little bit on that process. So Sonny is our dog. He's our second dog. We have an older dog named Abby, and Sonny, as of this recording, and it is October 2020 right now, he is almost 6 years old, and he already has basically a canine memoir out there, if there is such a thing. And so we got Sonny, we adopted him in, I remember the day, March 8th, 2015, at the Greater Birmingham Humane Society. My wife, Jessica, and I decided to go looking for a second dog. We had just bought our first house, and we had the space, and we just really wanted a second dog. And so we're at the Humane Society, and we're doing the whole thing everybody does, where they're walking around, circling that place. That's a tough place. You're on one hand, you're full of hope, and on the other hand, there's just kind of sadness. These dogs that have either been abandoned or born stray, and that kind of thing. It's a tough place. You really want to bring them all home. And in Sonny's case, so we circled the place for I don't know how long. We were to the point where we were like, okay, that dog has not presented himself or herself to us. We were about to leave and say, we'll come back again and see what happens. But at some point, we saw some people kind of ducking into this back like hallway. And it was just a spot that we had missed, that we just hadn't seen. And there were more cages back there. And so we were like, well, we're going to go back here since we haven't gone. So we walked back, and I remember taking a left, and Sonny was right there, basically at eye level with me in one of the top cages. He was an itty bitty thing, maybe at the time 7 or 8 pounds. And he was in the cage with his sister, actually. And he had his head laying across her back. And he was sleeping. And as soon as both of us saw him, we both just kind of said, that's it. He's the one. So we did the thing where you can go into a kind of a private room and bring the dog with you and sit and play with the dog and just kind of see if you're a match, see if he matches you and if you match him. And that went really well. And we told them that we had another dog who was a definite alpha, and they said, well, it might be a good idea to bring her down, and we'll let y'all back into the room so that both of them can meet each other. That way we can, ensure that they're going to take to each other okay. So we rushed home. And we grabbed Abby, put her in the car, drove all the way back to the Humane Society. They had put a hold on Sonny for us. At the time, his name, they were calling him Jay. And we spent a good while in that room letting them kind of get to know each other. And it went well enough, and we brought him home that day. And, one of those things that we just woke up that day thinking, maybe we'll get a dog. It's an idea that we had, and we don't want to rush it. You want to find the right canine to bring home, and we found him literally that day and brought him home that evening. And we learned pretty quick that we had a very interesting dog. I haven't had a ton of dogs, but and Jessica's had plenty of dogs, but we've both had enough dogs to realize that something about him was different. He was a big dog. He's a big dog now. He weighs about 85 pounds. But he's just the quirkiest thing. He just did not have the personality you'd expect for a Labrador Hound mix. He's just a big baby. And, when we took him for his first appointments, they kind of predicted, I guess, I don't know how they do this, but they were predicting his size. And the vet told us that he figured he'd probably end up 40 to 45 pounds. Well, 83 pounds later, here we are. And he's just, he's just been full of surprises. He's a quirky dog. Just does things out of the norm. He sticks his nose in vacuum cleaner hoses and stuff like that. But he has his just kind of inspiring stuff too. I mean, it could be a cloudy day, but he goes and finds that one patch of sunshine to sit in. And so the timing of getting him actually ended up incredible. Just things that happen in your day to day, deaths in family, job, career disappointment stuff. There's a reason they call them man's best friend. And that was when I realized that, when some of those type things happen to me, that, and the people that I know, that, wow, his adoption, the timing of his adoption couldn't have been any better for us. He's just, Abby has her independence, and she likes to do what she wants to do, and she only wants to be petted every so often. She's just independent. Sonny is constant. He needs it, he craves it, he wants that. And that ended up perfect for us in a time that we needed that kind of support. And speaking of timing, what's interesting was I was on the phone when we after we had gotten Sonny, and I was going back through his paperwork, and he was. I say that he was born on New Year's Day. It's funny. All of us in our house have a birthday that's on a holiday, and I knew Sonny. We knew he was born sometime in January, so we just said that his birthday is New Year's Day. And so he was picked up actually by in Bessemer, Alabama. Let's see, looks like, I think it was February 2nd, I think, is when he was brought in. And what's interesting about that is it was like 14 days before that, Bessemer, the city of Bessemer, had its own animal control, and they turned over their animal control responsibilities to Jefferson County, to the Greater Birmingham Humane Society on January 22nd. So, and Sonny was picked up February 2nd. So when I was talking to my friend that used to work at the Humane Society about that, I asked her, what if Bessemer still had its animal control services when he was picked up? What if he had been picked up by them January 21st? And she said, they didn't have the resources there, that most likely, I mean, there's always a chance for not, but most likely he would have been euthanized and never even gotten the chance to live his life. So we always remember that, just his timing overall of, just a timing for his own sake, and then his timing coming into our family. So that was something that when I kind of learned those things, I was like, man, it'd be cool to write that down. And I've always got that kind of mindset anyway, just with being a journalist and being an author. I've always kind of got that hat on and kind of thinking about what could be a story. What really pushed me to write the book actually happened when he was about a little over about a year and a half old. So summer of 2016. He started, he regurgitated everything. He couldn't keep any food down. He constantly was hacking, coughing. It was awful. And I don't know how many times we, cleaned the carpet, how many bottles of 409 we went through, how many rolls of paper towels we went through, and how many times we took him to the vet's office, but it was a lot. And one of the times we took him when it had gotten really bad, we saw a vet who we've only seen him a time or two since then, and it's been much improved. But that day, he put Sonny through some treatments, barium swallow treatments, and different things to see what was the issue. And he said that he pretty much said unequivocally that Sonny had megaesophagus with aspiration pneumonia. And both of those things are really, really bad for dogs. Megaesophagus is like their esophagus is kind of tight. Food can't make its way down. It gets stuck. They can choke. That you've seen, maybe if you've seen Bailey chairs for dogs that have megaesophagus, it's essentially a high chair for dogs, so that while they eat, they're completely upright, so that food can just have gravity do what gravity does. And they have to sit in that chair for 30 minutes or so after they eat to make sure their food goes down. The aspiration pneumonia combined with that is very often a dog killer. And when we were there that day, that the veterinarian told us that he's like, it's definitely megaesophagus and your dog's going to die. And that's pretty much how it was portrayed to us. It was very blunt. I don't know if he was having a bad day. I don't know if because we were there during emergency hours, he didn't want to work. I don't know if that's just how he chose to handle it, just to be straight up. But it didn't make us feel too good because we didn't at the time. We didn't know what it was. He just told us pretty bluntly that Sonny wasn't going to make it. So we went through that, more treatments, tons of pills, just I can't even describe, which I describe in the book. I'm not going to go through it for the sake of time on this podcast, but we went through so many trips to the vet, so many different medications and treatments and different things to try. I joke with the owner of the veterinarian office we go to now. They went through a really big expansion a couple of years after all this with Sonny. And I joke with him routinely that they got that new wing added on, that construction, because of all of Sonny's stuff happening, and that they should name that wing after Sonny. So that cracks us both up. But anyway, it ended up after months of this and back and forth and trying to figure it out, it ended up that Sonny did not have megaesophagus. I think he did have a touch of the aspiration pneumonia, but what it turned out, his official diagnosis was asthma, that he just had a crazy condition for a dog there where, sometimes he gets winded. Sometimes he struggles to breathe a little bit. So we've got that under control now, but when we went through all that, I kind of thought, man, this dog, he's quirky. His timing could not have been better for him and for us. But now he's got this bout with, with a sickness, with an adversity that he's overcoming. And I was like, this might be something worth pursuing. I don't know if it's, a long, like, magazine type story, feature story, blog, newspaper story. I don't know if it's a book, but I'm going to start gathering stuff. So that's kind of where it started for me, was probably sometime in 2017. I thought about it, and, maybe even, I'm trying to remember now, but maybe even wrote down some notes. But I kind of thought, I'm just going to pay close attention to him, and part of that was, for a minute there, I thought we were going to lose him when he was a year and a half old. So I wanted to do everything with him. If he was going to have that kind of bad fortune and not be around for very long, I wanted him to do more than snooze on the couch. I wanted him to see more than just our backyard. So he seemed to be a good topic to write about, sure, but I also wanted him to live, to really live, and so we took him everywhere. I mean, I don't know how many times he rode shotgun in my truck and then in my SUV to baseball parks, to walking trails, to Gatlinburg, to Florida, to a cabin in Georgia, back to Gatlinburg again, to heck, just to the Chick-fil-A drive-through window, to the Pizza Hut drive-through window where they give him treats. The Chick-fil-A drive-through window, they call him handsome and they stroke his ego. They still do. A lot of people, we used to live in Moody, Alabama, and they'd probably recognize him because I took him all the time. For a while there, I worked from home, and I would work the early shift and work 6 a.m. to 1:30, and he'd sit there the whole time, the whole 7.5 hours I worked. He would sit there at my feet, and then when 1:30 came, we were out the door, and we were going somewhere. We were going to Moody City Park. We were going to, a hiking trail somewhere. We were going anywhere and everywhere we could every afternoon. So, and in doing that, we were building, he was getting to adventure, he was getting to go out and do stuff like that. And I was really getting to know, kind of learn the mind of a dog. I started really reading about it. I started going to Second and Charles and buying those, secondhand clearance books for $1. I've got them all, most of them on my bookshelf still. And I think when all was said and done, I think I bought maybe 18 different books about dogs. Some of them that were, like your Marley and Me type book. Some of them that were like Science of a Dog kind of stuff. Inside of a Dog by Alexandra Horowitz. I mean, most of that went right over my head, but it was really interesting. And then other books like, I forget the name of it, with Tom Ryan, something Atticus, and them hiking up mountains and just all sorts of different stories about, people and their dogs and what dogs are capable of and stuff like that. And I was like, my gosh, I've got to do this. I've got to make this, my next project. So that's what I did. And really, I really just committed to closely observing him for however long it took. It turned out to be about 2 years of just close observation when we did anything, whether it be, a trip to Gatlinburg, whether it be try things in some of those books, whether it be learn something from those books and really pay attention to him and see how he reacted to those things or in those situations, how he used his nose to find different things, all of that. And so I closely observed him for 2 years and put notes together. And I remember this specifically. It was 2018, and it was sometime in the morning. I was watching the British Open, the golf British Open. And I had my notebook on the coffee table. I had been doing notes in it. Tiger Woods had just teed off, so I said, okay, I'm going to put this down for now, and I'm just going to watch golf. And I don't remember how. There were several notebooks on this coffee table. Sonny just randomly walks over and he nudged that notebook. And I kid you not, it flipped open the cover to the page where I had been outlining my notes. And I took it as a sign. It was like Sonny telling me, hey, you're doing this. Get started. Get after it. Quit just kind of jotting notes down and stop thinking and start doing. And so that's what I did. I really hit the ground running. I tried to treat the book like, obviously there's a lot of firsthand experience, just me and him, but I tried to incorporate other people's stories. I talked to, and I'm going to butcher his last name, but I talked to Peter Zudlin. He's authored several books about dogs, specifically Rescue Road. So I talked to him, and through talking to him, I got to talk to Greg Mahle, Mahle, Mahle. And Greg runs the Rescue Road Trips dog moving that he drives. He drives every week, every other week. Lives in Ohio, drives all the way down to like Louisiana, picks up dogs and drives them all the way up into like the Northeast. These are dogs that would be otherwise in high kill shelters, and he takes them to people who have adopted them up north. I talked to them. I talked to a local veterinarian. I talked to people who foster dogs. I talked to Sean Dietrich. People listening to this podcast probably know who Sean is. He's an author here he's in Florida, but very well known here in Alabama. We talked about our dogs. We've talked about our dogs a lot. So I spoke to him for the book. So the book really encompasses more than just experiences with Sonny. It kind of ties his story together with other people's stories. And I tried to really approach it in that journalistic kind of way. I want to tell my story. I want to tell Sonny's story. But I really want to incorporate others so that it kind of adds that context. It really adds, this is not just true for us. This is really a connection that any dog lover, any dog owner has, where things that I've written about in this book, people can kind of think on their own experiences with their own dogs and say, oh my gosh, I've been through that too. And, my dog helped with this, my dog did that. It's really, you can really see yourself and see your own pets in this book. So I talked to all those people. Some more about the book. What's interesting, when I said the title, you probably thought alliteration. Sonny Days, struggles, scenery, and solace with the world's strangest shelter dog. Lots of S's. And I'm disconcertingly flipping through my pages right now. But that's how I titled every chapter. There are 18 chapters plus a prologue and an epilogue. And every single title starts with an S. Stories, strayed, saved, sickness, sensitivity, soul, sentiment, sports, science, scared, scribbling, lots of S words. And most of these chapters stand on their own, but it's somewhat chronological, so that the book does flow. And one of the last chapters, the last chapter before the epilogue, it was the one that was the hardest for me. I read an entire book to write that chapter. I read the book Lost Horizons. I think it was written in like the 30s. And the reason I read it, it's a long story and I detail it in the chapter. But it's titled Shangri-La. And that's basically like a beautiful place kind of thing. If you know Don Henley music, then you know Shangri-La. If you've read Lost Horizons, you know Shangri-La. And it's basically in Eden. It's a beautiful place kind of thing. And this chapter, I think, really sums up life with Sonny, adventures with Sonny. And so it's about the property that where our house is now that we call home, and about him seeing it for the first time and moving here, and just his I guess a dog's perspective in a way. So real quick, humor me. I'm going to read you just kind of the last couple paragraphs from that chapter so that you kind of get an idea. Here we go. The hills behind our house are dotted with lanky pine trees and thick with fallen leaves. An old railroad track runs parallel to our property, and the low rumble of a train comes through only once, sometimes twice, per day. There are white gardenias, pink azaleas, and red camellias. We've found blackberries growing in a small area of the backyard. The whole property is postcard beautiful. Turkeys often twist through the pines, even in the front yard, and deer bound through the leaves. We can watch them from through our bedroom window. The occasional armadillo and curious raccoon cause a ruckus beyond our back fence. Rabbits eat at the vegetation at the wood's edge. Cardinals, blue jays, red-headed woodpeckers, Cooper's hawks, black crows, and Carolina chickadees dart to the green grass from the thickness of the magnolia trees. I told Sonny that we would cut a path somewhere through all this green and brown so that we could have our own trail, our own Walden Woods, our own Shangri-La. He stood there staring straight ahead, tongue dangling, ready to explore those woods with me. That night, we rested our aching feet and muscles on the couch in front of a Braves game on television. It had been an unsettling day. The move hit us hard emotionally when we didn't expect it to. We were ready to leave our home in Moody, but it was still difficult. We were nervous for the future. Our cell phone connection in the valley in which we moved to was spotty, so Jessica went to another room in search of better service to call her mom. Sonny and I sat in the glow of Fox Sports South, a brave 7-1 victory over the Miami Marlins. I sat on one end of the couch with Sonny at the other. I was overwhelmed, exhausted, achy, and emotional. Sonny could tell. I suppose he always can. At some point during the game, he rose from his corner, strode to my side, and dropped his head on my lap. We were home again. So that's how I ended that chapter, Shangri-La. And the last chapter, the epilogue, is called Sibling, and it really puts a bow on the book, really brings it all together from beginning to end. And I'm not going to tell you any more about the end of this book because honestly, I think you need to get it and read it because I think you can connect to it from many different ways. So that's kind of how the book came about. That's the story behind the story, I guess you'd call it. The book's available on Amazon as a paperback for $15. It's available on Kindle, I think, for $5.99. It's also on Audible, so if you like audiobooks, it's available as an audiobook. And then, I've also got copies of the book as well. You can contact me, send me a message, whatever. It's a book that I really enjoyed writing. I think it's an important book to read, especially while we're all kind of reeling during this COVID-19 pandemic stuff. It's a book that really can I think persuade you to slow down a little bit and kind of really take note of the things that are really important. So I hope you check it out. It's called Sonny Days, Struggles, Scenery, and Solace with the World's Strangest Shelter Dog. And I certainly appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to this, to listen to me talk about the book, and I really hope you check it out. So thank you.